Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you would place your future in their hands without a second thought? Stella did. And that trust would one day cost her everything she had worked for. But before betrayal entered her life, there was a friendship that seemed unbreakable. In a small village surrounded by dusty roads and endless fields, two little girls grew up side by side. Stella and Jane were known by everyone as inseparable friends. If you saw Stella, Jane was never far away. If you saw Jane, Stella was usually right beside her. Their families were poor and life was never easy. Some days they walked long distances to fetch water. Other days they helped their parents in the fields before going to school. Despite their struggles, they shared a dream. "We won't stay poor forever," Stella often said as they sat beneath an old mango tree after school. Jane would smile and nod. "One day we'll become successful together." Those words became their promise. Years passed, and the girls grew into hardworking young women. While many people in the village accepted poverty as their fate, Stella and Jane refused to give up. They spent their evenings learning new skills, reading borrowed books, and discussing business ideas. Stella possessed a natural gift for leadership. She was honest, disciplined, and determined. Jane was clever and persuasive. She knew how to talk to people and convince them to support their ideas. Together, they formed a powerful team. One day, they decided to start a small business selling handmade products in nearby towns. The beginning was difficult. They had almost no money. Sometimes they traveled for hours only to return home with very little profit. But neither gave up. When customers rejected them, Stella encouraged Jane. When Stella felt exhausted, Jane motivated her. Slowly, things began to change. Their products gained attention. More customers started buying from them. Soon, they were earning more money than they had ever imagined possible. For the first time in their lives, they could help their families. The village celebrated their success. People admired them and called them an example of hard work and perseverance. As the business expanded, Stella trusted Jane with many important responsibilities. After all, Jane was not just her business partner. She was her best friend, the person she had known since childhood, the person who had shared every struggle, the person who knew all her secrets. "There's no one I trust more than you," Stella told Jane one evening while reviewing their business records. Jane smiled warmly. "You never have to worry about me." Those words comforted Stella. But hidden behind Jane's smile was something Stella couldn't see, something that had been growing quietly for a long time. At first, it was only a small feeling, a feeling that appeared whenever villagers praised Stella more than Jane, whenever customers asked for Stella, whenever newspapers featured Stella's story, whenever investors wanted to meet Stella personally. Jane smiled in public, but inside, jealousy was beginning to take root. The success they had built together no longer felt equal in Jane's eyes. She started comparing herself to Stella. She started counting who received more attention, who received more praise, and who seemed more important. Every comparison made the jealousy stronger. One afternoon, while Stella attended a business meeting in the city, Jane remained at the office alone. A wealthy businessman arrived unexpectedly. He wanted to discuss a major partnership that could double their profits. Jane welcomed him. The meeting lasted hours. Before leaving, the businessman handed Jane a card. "See great potential in you," he said. "Perhaps we should discuss opportunities separately sometime." Jane stared at the card long after he left. Her heart raced. For the first time, a dangerous thought entered her mind. What if she didn't need Stella anymore? What if all the success could belong to her? What if she became the one everyone admired? Jane quickly pushed the thought away. But it didn't disappear. Instead, it returned again and again. Each day it grew stronger. Each day it whispered new possibilities. Meanwhile, Stella remained completely unaware. She continued trusting Jane with financial records, business negotiations, and important decisions. She believed their friendship was stronger than money, stronger than success, and stronger than temptation. But sometimes the people closest to us know exactly where our weaknesses are. And sometimes the deepest betrayals begin with a single thought that nobody else can see. As Stella celebrated another major achievement for their company, Jane stood beside her smiling for the cameras. The crowd cheered. The future looked brighter than ever. Yet hidden behind Jane's applause was a secret decision that would soon change both their lives forever. And when Stella finally discovered the truth, she would learn that not every enemy comes from outside. Sometimes they grow beside you for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The business card remained hidden in Jane's drawer, but the dangerous thoughts inside her mind could no longer be hidden. Every morning, Stella arrived at work full of energy and excitement, discussing new plans for the company they had built together. She trusted Jane completely and never questioned her decisions. To Stella, nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Jane had begun meeting secretly with a wealthy businessman who had approached her months earlier. What started as casual conversations soon became private business discussions. He constantly praised Jane, telling her she was the real reason behind the company's success. "You are living in Stella's shadow," he often said. At first, Jane disagreed. But the more she heard those words, the more she started believing them. The businessman saw her growing jealousy and used it to his advantage. "You deserve more," he told her one evening. "Why share success when you can have it all?" Those words echoed in Jane's mind for days. Meanwhile, Stella continued expanding their business. New investors arrived. New opportunities appeared. Their company was becoming one of the most respected businesses in the region. One afternoon, Stella walked into the office carrying exciting news. "Jane," she exclaimed, "we received an offer to open branches in 3 major cities." Jane forced a smile. "That's wonderful." But inside, she felt anger instead of happiness. Again, everyone would praise Stella. Again, Stella would become the face of their success. That night, Jane made a decision she could never take back. If she wanted everything, Stella had to lose everything. Over the following weeks, Jane carefully began putting her plan into motion. Because Stella trusted her with financial records and legal documents, Jane had access to nearly every important part of the business. She quietly created separate accounts. She moved funds without Stella noticing. She convinced several key clients to sign private agreements directly with her. And whenever Stella asked questions, Jane always had convincing answers. "Don't worry," Jane would say with a smile. "I've already handled it." Stella never doubted her. Why would she? This was the same friend who had stood beside her since childhood. The same friend who had promised they would succeed together. Months passed. The company continued growing, but hidden cracks were beginning to form beneath the surface. One morning, Stella received a phone call from a supplier. The conversation left her confused. "What do you mean the payment wasn't made?" she asked. The supplier sounded frustrated. "It's been overdue for weeks." Stella immediately checked the records. According to the company accounts, the payment had already been completed. Something didn't make sense. For the first time, a small feeling of concern entered her heart. She decided to investigate further. The more documents she reviewed, the more problems she discovered: missing funds, unexplained transfers, contracts she had never approved, clients who had suddenly stopped working with them. Her hands trembled as she searched for answers. Surely there was a mistake. Surely Jane could explain everything. That evening, Stella invited Jane to her office. When Jane entered, Stella placed several documents on the desk. "What is this?" Stella asked quietly. For a brief moment, panic flashed across Jane's face. But she quickly recovered. There must be an accounting error. Stella wanted to believe her. She desperately wanted to believe her, but the evidence continued growing. Over the next few days, Stella hired independent auditors to examine the company's records. The results shattered her world. Millions had disappeared. Important contracts had been transferred. Sensitive business information had been leaked. And every trail pointed to one person:
Jane.
The friend she trusted more than anyone. the friend she considered family, the friend she had defended countless times. When Stella read the final report, tears filled her eyes. Not because of the money, not because of the business, but because of the betrayal. The pain felt deeper than any financial loss. It felt like losing a part of herself. The following day, Stella confronted Jane one last time. The office was silent. Neither woman spoke for several seconds. Finally, Stella slid the report across the table. Jane looked down. She knew there was no escaping the truth anymore. "Tell me it isn't true," Stella whispered. Jane stared at the papers. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of apologizing, she laughed softly. A cold laugh Stella had never heard before. "You always thought this company belonged to both of us," Jane said. But everyone only saw Stella. Stella this, Stella that. I was tired of being second. Stella felt her heart break. "So you destroyed everything?" Jane's eyes hardened. "I took what I deserved." The words hit Stella harder than any insult. Years of friendship, years of struggle, years of loyalty, gone in a single moment. As Jane stood and walked toward the door, she paused briefly. "You trusted too easily, Stella." Then she left. And Stella was left alone with the ruins of the life she had worked so hard to build. But what Jane didn't realize was that Stella's story was far from over. Because sometimes losing everything becomes the beginning of discovering who you truly are. And while Jane believed she had won, a storm was already approaching, one that neither money nor betrayal could stop.